And welcome to the Country Telegraph. I'm Mike Ryan. Nice to have your company. Some fantastic video there of just rural Australia, outback Australia. That's what a bit of hard work does to you, makes you a great person. Now, looking at some of the news that's making the news, the headlines, another price pressure warning for Australian households as Bundaberg's agricultural products and businesses battle floods. Bundaberg produces about 40% of Australia's macadamias, more than 80% of the nation's sweet potato, and about 10% of its sugarcane. The National Farmers Federation has called for calm amid panic buying of fuel and diesel stocks after taking part in a ministerial roundtable in Canberra, where they spoke basically about nothing. Victorian Farmers Federation President Brett Hosking has announced he will step down in June rather than seek re-election. That's amid speculation he will run for a national seat, and I think he would do a pretty good job, to say the least. The Nationals are also talking, taking another major step towards preserving Australia's food security with the tabling of proposed laws to ban federal funding of projects that diminish prime agricultural land or place it under foreign ownership. And finally, after 5 years of planning and advocacy, Mount Gambier and District Sale Yards is finally proceeding with a much needed upgrade, including a roof over the cattle yards and soft flooring. Coming up next, we'll be talking in the background, you can hear him, we're talking to Robbie Katter here on it's a brand new show. It's called the Country Telegraph. Robbie Katter is Northwest's voice to the Queensland Parliament as leader of Katter's Australian Party and member for Traeger, and with real-world experience in mining, property valuation and running a small business, Robbie is very well qualified to represent his electorate. Traeger is one of Queensland's largest and most diverse electorates, covering 911 square k's and 12 local government areas. It spans from the goldfields of Charters Towers to the mining powerhouse of Mount Isa and Cloncurry to the Northern Territory border. It also takes in the Gulf country, including Burketown, Normanton, Karumba and Mornington Island. The economy is built on mining, agriculture and grazing, industries that have long sustained its communities. First of all, Robbie Katter, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us on, Mike.
And you're in Mount Isa today.
Yeah, Mount Isa, base here, mate. It's pretty hard to pick where's the best place to base yourself for this seat when you're, like, say, 428,000 square kilometres. You sort of try and be everywhere at once.
It's a big area. And what's the temperature today? 438?
Yeah, I don't know, mate. It's in the 30s somewhere. But when they say, you pull something out of the package, it comes in the mail, and they say it's UV protected. It's never UV protected for northwest Queensland, I can tell you.
Right. And this is where men are men and won't go to the rest of it. You've heard that one before. Tell me about your electorate. How are the good folks of your electorate faring in this economy? And part two, the threat of no fuel. It must be creating all sorts of concerns.
Yeah, mate, I guess the imagery I like to project for this electorate, it's a little bit like you're a diesel mechanic in the engine room of the Titanic. Everyone's sort of sitting on the deck having a party and thinking everything's going pretty good. But you can see when when your valves are getting old and the machinery is starting to pack it in, and where it needs to be invested in and how you got to move the thing forward. I like that because, we certainly don't have the mortgage on productivity and industry in Australia, but but it's a very industry-rich and mineral-rich area. So you do get a bit of a window into it, and you're very attuned into what helps create wealth and what's helped build the country in the first place, and the role that these industries play, like agricultural and mining. And yeah, they just look. I don't know. I don't know how to characterize it, but there's just been such a deficit of commitment to try and benefit from these industries and these resources that we have. We're sitting where I am now. We're standing on $700 billion worth of metals. Most of that's copper, silver, lead, zinc. All metals we're going to need into the future, and they say critical minerals. Like a lot of that could end up being pie in the sky, but certainly the copper and everything. Yeah, $700 billion worth of metals we're sitting here, but it'll all still sit here for another 50, 100 years if you don't have the settings right on your power and the infrastructure working for you. And we get forgotten about up here. They're focused on the Olympics, having an athletics party in Brisbane in 2032 rather than trying to fix rail and electricity supply and that to these areas. So we've got a big job cut out for us if you want to represent these areas.
Yeah, just thinking state governments, which is the worse, the state government or the federal government? Because I look at or they both tarnished with the same brush.
Oh, I'd say absolutely both tarnished. Look, I don't know. I hear horror stories from going down to Canberra, but I've had the benefit of not having to go down there very much. And you hear about the Canberra bubble. Maybe it's exacerbated or worse, but we've just inherited a generation of public servants here in Queensland who might not hate the bush or rural development, but they certainly are indifferent to it. And they'll tell you 20 reasons why you can't build a dam or do an irrigation scheme or unlock a mine. They'll never give you solutions on how to do anything or how to move forward, which, as I understand, is a complete shift from where we were, let's say, 40 or 50 years ago. And when my father was, early in his term as a politician, they were building Queensland. We've been living off the spoils from that period ever since and doing a pretty good job of stuffing most of that, including the coal industry now, which Queensland got largely built on, which they're doing a good job of stuffing that up as well with those new royalty regimes.
Yeah, your family's been involved with politics. If you look at yourself and your dad since Ned Kelly was a boy, how is the? Let's go back a few years, even when you were growing up. How is the standard of politicians? Were they better then? Because I get the feeling that in those days, you called a spade a shovel. These days, you can't get a straight answer. But that's just my opinion. What's your opinion? What do you think about politics these days compared to what it used to be like?
Yeah. Yeah, someone said in an interview on the ABC last year, there's not enough young people in politics. And I said, oh my goodness, are you serious? Like, there's not enough old people in politics. Go and have a look at the average age in the Queensland Chamber when it's sitting. I looked at a photo. Someone sent me a photo of an image of the cabinet room when Dad was a minister in the 80s, and he was the young bloke at 30, 35. He was the young bloke in the room. And there was all these hard-assed looking, some of them are cane cutters, cattlemen, industry blokes, and women there as well. And he said you had to be tough to survive in that cabinet room because you couldn't, bureaucrats couldn't come in and sell their wares and sort of feed a story to the ministers. They'd call them out and kick them out the door quick smart if they weren't following their direction, the strategic direction of the government. But somewhere along the line, it just, and Dad sort of talks about it in his book he wrote, it flipped in the 80s where the public servants started running the show and making all the decisions, and government sat back passively taking direction on most things. And I guess that's part of the reason no significant dams have been built inside the last 30 years in Queensland, because they just a little bit of lack the will, but no one wants to barge through all the quagmire of public servants that get in your road of building anything here. So, we've got, just close to where I am now, we'd have millions and millions of acres of black soil, flat, cleared, open black soil plains, naturally open grasslands, with one of the biggest river systems in Queensland, 1,000 kilometres of it. Currently, they're taking less than 1% out, and we're not allowed to touch any more water out of it. Like, it's just madness. It's like we're stuck up here, where the rest of Australia was 100 years ago when it was all being developed, and everyone else got to take advantage of their natural resources. But North Queensland and far North Queensland, they sort of missed the boat.
We've just lost Robbie then. He will come back to us in 1 second. Here he comes back. Robbie, you're back. You just dropped out. Telstra's not
Oh,
working.
sorry.
No,
Well,
Telstra's not
yeah,
working.
that was, yeah, another problem.
Hey, tell me
Yeah, but I was just saying we're stuck in the time warp
you
out
are,
here.
but does it? I mean, I have I'm from the bush, um, and I look at the Great Dividing Range, one of the great uh,
Mm,
pieces of environment in this whole country, if not the world, and we
yep,
saw under the Labor government in Queensland, they went ahead and started planning. We see the federal government planning to put windmills up. I see that Crisafulli hasn't
yeah,
done a whole lot to stop the actual raising the top of the Great Dividing Range, and they're going to put in thousands upon thousands upon thousands of windmills. Um,
yep,
and to be honest here, I mean, when I see that and read about it and hear about it and talk about it, I get very angry because once it's gone, it's gone.
mm, yep,
In one hand, they're trying to save the planet by destroying the planet, but by saving it, the
yeah,
information they have, it's all based on a lie anyway. So
yep.
does it really get up your nostrils? I'll be very, very calm here and clean, but does it get up your nostrils to see them
Mm.
destroy the Australian bush based on a lie?
And, well, I couldn't agree with you more. It's all based on a lie, Mike. And Australian taxpayers and governments for many years now been taken for a big ride
Mm.
um, on all this net zero climate change stuff. Both major parties heavily invested in it, and yeah, it's taken over. But I don't know. Maybe there's a correction there, but you couldn't. I mean, couldn't have said it any better, mate. Like it's. Um, I'll say they didn't even need to build it. You could still use the argument it wasn't even needed in the first place. But there's an old mine site, discarded mine site, Kidston Gold Mine, where they put solar panels in the old tailings dam, and they were using it as a battery for the grid, which you don't really need the batteries if you don't not trying to put renewables back into the grid. But put them in old mine sites. But they put it on agricultural land or something. If you even made the decision to do this stuff at all, which you shouldn't have to because we don't really need it all. But if you were, go and put it on a private site. But there's nothing offends. I think anyone that's got half a sort of compassion or empathy for sort of agriculture and production in this country. You drive past these lush green fields, like I see a lot more in southeast Queensland, and these windmills and solar farms popping out. It's just horrible, mate. And crikey, if you couldn't cast a worse light on our governments that they'd allow this happen, like take what is our competitive advantage is these natural resources that we have, this agricultural land, and converting it to industrial wasteland, just madness, absolutely insanity. And everyone's been going to the party in Brisbane and Canberra for a long time. And yeah, I'd like to think or hope that we were some sort of counterpoint to that.
Yeah, I think we need a little more common sense. Speaking about common sense, I see Chris Bowen and I saw Albanese reassuring Australia that we have plenty of fuel. On the land, and I'm hearing horror stories that they can't get diesel or they're still
Mm.
waiting on that diesel to be delivered. And my guess was that the neighbours had sabotaged or raided the truck before I got to those people. How serious is it on the land? Because you've got a diverse range of industries, from mining to rural to all sorts of industries. Without diesel or without fuel, it stops. And if it stops, we stop.
Mm. Yeah, look, I haven't got my head completely around, but I've got a fair idea at the moment that it's a lot of the independent, I guess you call them wholesalers. They become retailers that take, they buy it off the major fuel suppliers in this country. With this, there's sort of four or five big ones. They'll buy it off them and then use their trucks to take them out to the farms, the stations, small towns. A lot of those independent sort of third parties that have operated in that space, they've all had their taps cut off. So they've got the distribution network, and presumably the big oil companies saying, "Well, we're just satisfying our branded service stations and pretty much sandbagging the cities, and all those others can sort themselves out." So we've built an industry and distribution around that. And I mean, there's got to be no question around that. There must be some shortage in supply. It's just ridiculous for the Labor government to say there's no problem. And mate, I'd finish by saying it is so frustrating for the KAP, my father and I, to see both sides of Parliament criticising everyone when one of the solutions there is ethanol, biofuel. It doesn't solve the whole problem, but it's been sitting there as a problem for fuel security, which is why the US mandated, why 63 other countries in the world mandated ethanol to create an industry, create offtake. So you've already got fuel refineries half built, or you should say 75% built all throughout Queensland on the East Coast. They're called sugar mills. Sugar mills can just start pouring their juice into making ethanol, and they're now detuning cars off the boats in Australia for non-ethanol fuel. So there's, it can only put price pressure down, enhance fuel security, and give all our farmers a secondary market. It's akin to having the live export and the cattle and sheep that you have a secondary market to sell into. It can only be a good thing and enhance fuel security. We're 20 years, here we are confronted with it, and they're still balking at it. And it's again, insanity for us that they're not putting in an ethanol mandate tomorrow like 63 other countries in the world have.
And what happens, though, when the fuel stops? What happens to your electorate?
Mate, it's not a huge problem for someone in Brisbane or Canberra that they can still walk to the shops or walk to a doctor's appointment or walk up the road to see their friends. Out here, like, everything stops. Nothing's produced here. Like, nothing comes here but without the virtue of outside the virtue of bloody petrol powered machines or avgas powered. So without it, mate, we've got nothing. It's catastrophic. Yeah. So the emphasis from the government should be the other way around, is that the farmers in remote areas who are productive and creating production critically rely on this to keep moving. That should be the focus strategically for the government. But all I seem to hear from federal government at the moment is trying to pretend there's not a problem there. So it's very frustrating to watch it. And it is really, it's a very serious situation confronting these remote areas, not just the farmers, but even just these remote communities. Would find it very hard in the future indeed.
What about the recent floods you've had in Traeger? How's the rebuild? How's the infrastructure going? Is it there, or again, have they just sort of ignored?
Oh, look, they haven't. It wouldn't be fair to say they've ignored us. They've been pretty good on the ground, state government, but I mean, they're looking over their shoulder at the big Olympics bill they're going to have, which estimates.
We've just lost Robbie again. We're always there network, Telstra. Robbie will come back in about 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. He's not back, so Robbie Katter will be back very shortly. He's just dropped out at the moment. And when Robbie comes back, I just want to ask him one more thing about what's the biggest things holding his electorate back. No, he's disappeared, which is just terrible. My producer is running around the background, pulling out the hairs out of the nose. So Robbie is now gone. I think we'll have Ross Johns in a second. It's all happening, as they would say. And Ross Johns is looking as beautiful as ever, but we'll get to Ross Johns very shortly here on the Country Telegraph. Ross Johns has built a career in agribusiness finance and brings decades of experience in the Australian agriculture sector. Now, Ross was born in Warwicknabeal 232 years ago. Sorry, I had to do that because I'm very cheeky. And farms land west of Warwicknabeal growing wheat, barley, canola and lentils, along with sheep for wool and meat production. Now, Ross is a past director of the ABB Grain and ASX 100 listed company, past deputy chairman of GRDC Grains Research and Development Corporation, past director of Western Water, and is currently president of the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association, Inc. First of all, Ross, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Mike. It's good to be here.
You look great for being 232 years old.
Thank you.
That's all right. Tell us about your organisation, about the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association and its mission.
Okay, well, the organisation was formed around about 18 months ago um, by a poor process put in place by government in the fast track renewable build and seeking more and accurate information about what projects were undertaken. We certainly were not getting accurate and timely information from the developers nor government. And we've had a number of experts speak to the group of people over a period of time, and in the search for accurate information about what's planned and what the renewable build really means for the western part of Victoria.
You've had a bit of a well, being nice about this, the Victorian government has sort of made its presence even more known to farmers in your area with this new, where they can just walk in and acquire land. What sort of concern is that showing at the moment for your members? Because you, if they come in and acquire a piece of land to put in some infrastructure, it would diminish the value of that property, plus also put a spoke in the works for production, wouldn't it?
Well, certainly there were some problems, and the government process that was underway wasn't working. So the Victorian government changed the law, changed the rules, and is now planning to compulsory acquire those parcels of land. I think it's been rushed and poorly planned, and this just epitomises the whole fast track renewable build and how poorly it includes community consultation and transparency. And in fact, there is no real transparency. There's no contact with the community. It's just arrogant, self-serving government that is pushing this forward. And there's issues around environment. There's issues around the quality of the build, and they're just fast tracking over all those issues and planning to build this V&I West line from Denowin in New South Wales down to Bulgana and then on to Sydenham in the western part of Melbourne. And farmers are just sick of government. They're sick of government changing the rules. They're sick of government changing the legislation. We want a proper process if there's going to be a renewable build, and we want to have community consultation.
Besides all the other headaches which government's throwing at you, the fuel crisis must also be raising some eyebrows.
Oh, well, fuel, diesel. Diesel was out the week that the war started in Iran. And in Dimboola, you couldn't buy diesel in any service station. It's been very slow to get into the country. I know farmers that have ordered 20,000 litres of diesel to do the cropping and have been cut back to 5,000 litres of diesel if they can get it, and they still haven't got it after a couple of weeks. I think it'll certainly, if there's no diesel available in the next short period of time for farmers, it'll have a big impact on the cropping program for this year and the profitability and hence the performance of the Australian economy.
Do you have a plan B if the diesel? And I think this will go on for, in my humble opinion, I would think it would go on for quite a few months, 2, 3, 4 months, because at the moment it doesn't look like Iran is reading the press releases from the White House that they're losing. And that could be a problem down the track. So if it keeps going, uh, how do we maintain production? How do we maintain our food supply? What about food security?
Well, I think Australia is very lucky in that we produce 3 times more food than we can consume. But if we can't get diesel, we won't even be able to produce that. Um, and it's not just about producing food; it's about getting the food to where it's needed in the big feedlots on the coast, which is Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane. If the food's being produced in regional areas and you can't move it to the cities still run out of food. I think this is a significant issue for Australia. It just goes to highlight the poor process adopted by Chris Bowen. Um, as soon as he opened his mouth and said fuel security, we've got no problem in Australia, we've got 34 days of diesel, everyone panicked. And city-based people panicked, country people panicked. It was just not satisfactory. And the government signed an agreement for 90 to hold 90 days, and they haven't even done that. These guys are just completely, utterly, totally inept at managing the interests of the Australian economy and the citizens of Australia.
Sounds like there's an election coming on in Victoria. Maybe I'm wrong there. But that was well spoken, by the way.
Oh,
Authorised
thank you.
authorised by Ross Johns of the whatever party he wants to be. It's going to be a big party. Let me tell you that.
Well,
Um,
I'm for the Australia Party, the party that looks after the interests of Australians, and we've got a government that's not doing that. We've got an opposition that's not holding government accountable, and I'm all about proper process and standing up for what's in the best interest of Australians.
the Strait of Hormuz. And it is a fiasco because normally when you start a war, you make sure you have an end to it. Oh, we didn't realise that bit. Anyway, it's not just fuel though. We have major chemicals for industrial use, feedstock. There's also semiconductors, fertiliser, food. So it's not just the actual fuel that's going to create a real spatter in the works. It's all sorts of things. I mean, tell me if you didn't get your fertiliser in time, what happens to the crops or next year's crops?
Well, the crop yield, if you don't put fertiliser on, will be significantly lower, and that's food production will be lower. And I think Australia is such an important food producing country for the world that this will have a significant impact on places like Pakistan and India and Sri Lanka, many other countries of the world, if not on our domestic food security and availability in the feedlots, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. So there is, I think, about 30% of our fertiliser comes from the Persian Gulf. It's a huge issue. So fuel and fertiliser equals food, and no fuel, no fertiliser, food production can potentially be down significantly. And government's not even thinking that long term. They're thinking about next week, next year. In fact, what's going through Chris Bowen's head, I really couldn't tell you.
When
He has no comprehension of the issues around agricultural production and food production in Australia.
I think I think he wears solar hats, and it's fried. It's fried the brain, but he is terrible. But it's not just the Australian federal government. I mean, whether they're Labor or they're Conservative, as in Queensland, they all sort of. I don't know what it is because when I lived on a block in Mildura, which you've just been to, and you left very quickly. I noted that.
Yep.
And a wise move probably. But we always used to whinge about, like for example, Spring Street, Melbourne, or in Canberra, or governments don't really understand, or they understand, but they don't place a whole lot of importance, do they? Because there aren't that many votes in the bush, and all the votes are in the major metropolitan areas. However, if you run out of food, or if the crop doesn't work, then the good city folks start wondering that this thing is not just pour water on and eat. It's a thing that takes a whole year to get to that particular point, sometimes 2 years. How do we get into the nongs of the politicians that instead of saying, well, there's only so many votes there, so we won't take so much notice of. How do we get into their brains that they have to at all times look after the bush, because without the bush, you ain't got a city?
No, well, that's entirely true. And I guess I would think about it from a slightly different perspective. Once upon a time, Australia was a very practical nation. We did practical things. We grew food, we mined, and we still do those things. And in fact, 14% of our export revenue comes from agriculture and 60% comes from mining. So 75% of our export revenue come from those two very practical things. If diesel is short and we can't get supplies, our export income will be impacted extremely significantly. These guys that are running the government at the moment are living in a fairyland, in a bubble. They're living in a net zero bubble and thinking that we can save the world in Australia's carbon savings. That is absolutely rubbish, complete, total fabrication. We're going to impact negatively the living standards of all Australians to go down a net zero pathway, potentially reducing food production. This is just not what this government signed up to. The Paris Agreement they signed up to was not to impact negatively food production. And I think it's a critical issue. If you haven't got food, that's the most political thing that can ever happen. And the fortunate thing about Australia is we've never been short of food, but in Europe, in Asia, in Indonesia and India, they've all been short of food, and they place a high priority on food security. So should our government.
Tell me about Farmers Fight Back, what all Australians need to know.
Well, there's a group of farmers that are really fighting back against poor process from government, and Ben Duxon is running that, and he's done an absolutely exceptionally good job. He's very determined to have a proper process. He's got a great group of very loyal, long-term Australians who are supporting his cause, and the government's going to have a real struggle with farmer fight back. And what I guess they're trying to do is hold government accountable for proper process, community consultation and transparency. And I fully support Ben Duxon.
Ross, if somebody wants to find out more about what you do or what Ben does, how do they do that?
Well, I would just Google the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. I put out a video every morning of about 2 minutes on the latest updates on things that are relevant to Australia and to Australians. I want to see all Australians prosper. I want to see the young families prosper. I want to see the pensioners do well. The cost of living squeeze that's on right now is absolutely ludicrous. We should have the cheapest energy in the world. Otherwise, Facebook, we've got a page there on Facebook. So Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association, or just Google Ross Johns, because I try to reshare them on my page as well.
Or because of your age, look, go back to the history books. Sorry about that.
That's right, exactly.
And finally, the all-important question, you're a Victorian. Do you follow Carlton or Collingwood?
Oh, yes, I'm a Carlton supporter.
Big game tonight.
Pig's Arse ran the show, and I've never particularly liked Collingwood, but Carlton has been run very poorly for a long time, a little bit like the Australian government, really, and eventually it'll come good. It's just a matter of when.
Well, the Australian government and the Carlton Football Club have one thing in common. They haven't been kicking many goals of late.
No, well, I think the government's actually working against the interests of Australians, and I think that's a tragedy. And the people in the cities are probably going to be hurt the most. They've got little choice. If they don't have food, a good friend of mine says 9 meals. We're 9 meals away from anarchy, and that's 3 days without food. People go crazy, and that is a distinct possibility with how the government's got the Australian economy into this situation now.
Yeah, it's just a terrible state that we're in. We should never be in that state because we are a big, magnificent country. We have all the resources there under the sun, and look what we're doing with it.
We've got a lot of good resources, and we should utilise them for the benefit of Australians. And the way we're going, I think the poor process that's been adopted by government, they're just making Australians poorer and poorer and putting us at higher and higher risk, and that's just not sensible. It just can't continue this way. It's just the most unsatisfactory situation for all Australians.
Yeah, I totally agree. Good luck tonight with the Blue Boys. I think Tigers will be they'll rock up for a good game, but I think Blue Boys will win this one too.
We might need a little bit of luck, I reckon, Mike. But anyway.
Well, good luck anyway. I could sing you the song, but I forget the lyrics all the time. Ross Johns, thank you very much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Did you know they plan to build over 3,000 wind turbines on Queensland's Great Dividing Range? Over 3,700 kilometres of new haulage roads will carve through old growth forest. Destroying forests for industrial renewables makes no sense. It doesn't have to be this way. The intact biodiverse ranges of Queensland are no place for renewables. Take 2 minutes to learn the truth about the destruction they cause. Go to rainforestreserves.org.au.
Okay, we're going to talk about the heart collectors. No, not the mob that go around collecting blood, but they actually, maybe they could do that down the track. Who knows? If you believe in those sci-fi films, that they collect hearts for those elite people. You are. And we'll find out too why the Heart Collectors are called the Heart Collectors. Members Ruben Loire, Kimry Henge, Mobius Barnaby, and Tristan Defoe make up the Heart Collectors. That's a homegrown, international award-winning epic folk band. From humble beginnings to regional in regional New South Wales, the band is regularly sought out by some of the biggest international music conferences and festivals in the world, including South by Southwest, Folk Alliance International, NAM, Canadian Music Week, and Global Music Match. They have wowed audiences with their tight vocal harmonies, intricately beautiful musicianship, and larger than life presence and performances. Following the success of their Austin to Boston USA tour in early 2024 with 13 sold out shows, the band's tour was extended for an additional 6 months, where they had a fantastic time, an extended holiday, following up invitations to perform across Canada and the USA. Now, the band completed their 9-month headline USA tour with their album, The Space Between being named a finalist for Best Album at the International Folk Music Awards in 2025, alongside Sierra Ferrell, Kaya, I think it was Katter, and good luck on this name, Ailfi O'Donovan. They are performing on Friday, the 30th of March, in beautiful Tyalgum in New South Wales for Hearts of Flame Productions, and hello to Solar. It's a weekend of folk music. And if you want to find out more, go to heartsoflameproductions.com.au. First of all, I have to welcome the Heart Collectors. And
Yay!
tell
Hi,
me about
Mike.
the name. I mean, truly, did the Red Cross get a hold of you?
Mike, I'm not sure about that. I think we're going to stay in our own lane of music and not so much collecting hearts down the track. No, thank you.
Hey, how did you get started? I mean, was it, one day you thought, oh, this is a good idea? Because my past life, I worked in music radio for about, I won't say how many years, but that will give an indication that I'm over 400. But how did you get together? What was the premise of the band, and where did you see yourselves going from there?
So we have been friends for a very, very long time, family friends. And in fact, Kim and Tristan have known each other since they were 5.
Yep.
When Kimry was traveling to the United States with her mother, when her mother was working over there, and Tristan is actually from the Midwest of America, and they were next door neighbors. And so Tristan eventually came to Australia, being a musician. Kimry has also been a very talented dancer all her life, and then moved into music. Ruben's always been a guitarist and an artist as well, and including myself being in music. And we found ourselves in the same area and feeling like the same kind of purpose. And that was we wanted to actually create music together for starters, but also to do something positive in the world at this time, and in a world that has kind of so much chaos and destabilization going on. Why not actually bring a positive presence and a positive current and happiness and joy to people's lives through music? So we made that commitment to each other, and it all began, and off we set, and it's been fairly successful.
I really like the extended by 6 months your American tour. Of course, that was just hard work, and there was no fun of that at all. It was just pure hard work. And then I saw a pig fly by when I was, describing that. But what a great experience! I mean, the US is still the epicenter of music globally.
Yes.
The audiences are diverse. You can have sold-out shows, whether you're rock, country, jazz, blues, whatever. And they really do appreciate great musicianship. What about the downside? Because I could see, it was 9 months all up, so you would have been missing home. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, we definitely missed home. I mean, luckily for modern day technology, we were able to get on Zooms and things to connect home. But that's probably the biggest part of it, being away for 9 months. We weren't intending on being away for 9 months, as you mentioned earlier when you read some of the information. It was only going to be 3 months, but the response to our music off the back of Folk Alliance International, the largest folk music industry gathering every year in America, all the venues and all the bookers and agents were there, and they were like, please come, please come, please come. And then we realized that it was probably going to be much cheaper and easier for us to stay and make that commitment and take the opportunity while we were there. So we extended our tour van and off we set. 9 months all up, 45,000 kilometres. And
the energy just kept growing, and every audience, every place that we went to, the message was sort of traveling with us and growing, and the audiences were getting excited about the fact that we would be coming, and so there was this momentum, and that gave us energy. It was exhausting, but it gave us so much energy to be there and share that positivity with her.
Yeah, the days of live music. I mean, when I was growing up, and by the way, I haven't grown up yet, apparently, which is a good way to be too. But once upon a time, every night there was bands playing at pubs. The money wasn't all that great, but what you did, with the live performances, you honed your musicianship. You knew. I mean, here I am pretending I'm scatting, but it's what's missing these days. There aren't that many live venues out there. A lot of the stuff now is it's so digital, it loses the live feeling, and it loses also I think the talent of the musician, because as you get older, you see that's why a lot of them migrate from pop to blues or rock to blues. And you got guys in their 50s and 60s and even 70s. Look at Carlos Santana. I mean, you've got these people who just get better and better. But to do that, you've got to be able to play live, don't you? You guys do, you really push that barrel, you play live. What's the difference with doing a live gig and going into the studio, say, to record your album?
I mean, there's nothing quite like performing live. The energy of having an audience in front of you is very a particular feeling. And
it's reciprocal.
Yes, you give energy, but also the audience is giving you back a whole lot of love and appreciation. And every audience is different. Sometimes it's very intimate, and we pride ourselves of being able to turn up to a venue and just play purely acoustically if we need to. But we can also turn up to big festival stages in front of 10,000 people and perform with electrics and things like that. And so we really appreciate that experience. But we are currently at the end of being in the studio working on our latest album, getting ready to retour the United States, which is where we've been for the last month or so. So very different energy being in a studio as opposed to performing live. But performing live is really what we want to be doing. And America, we've been given the opportunity to perform in America over the last couple of years, and so that's where we're headed. We've got our visas. We've got the tour van booked. We've got all the venues lined up. So we're about to hit the road at the end of April.
But going back to your question, we do
actually we have a really bad internet right now, but that's just part of living, I think, at the moment. Tell me about which some of the locations, East Coast, West Coast, that you'll be performing at next.
In America, we're doing an entire circuit. So we fly into the West Coast, into California, San Francisco, and we go all the way up to Seattle and Portland. Then we're flying down to Austin, Texas, and then we get a tour van from Austin, Texas, and we drive all the way across to the East Coast and up to all the way as far as Boston, back across to the middle of the country, and then across to Colorado. So we're doing a big loop of the country again.
Yep.
There's a couple stops.
All you need is a plane to have fuel. Good luck getting that.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe rowboats, that you get fit, or a sailboat, you'll get there eventually, maybe. Folk music. I mean, my history is music, but folk music used to be big. I mean, you had, go back to the 60s, and you had Peter, Paul and Mary. John Denver was basically folk music, went over to country. Tell us about folk music nowadays. Is it still the Peter, Paul, Mary sort of stuff? Strong harmonies, great guitar work, very, very non-electronic, you might say, or has it changed and evolved into something else?
I think folk music, for the most part, is still very much alive, and that stream of connection to folk being storytelling. Folk is basically about storytelling and about community and about bringing people together through the telling of stories and sharing the stories. We, as I mentioned earlier, we were very fortunate to be invited to showcase at the largest folk music conference in the world every year in Kansas City in America called Folk Alliance International. And we met the community of American folk music and world folk music. And it was a big eye-opener for us because we realized, yes, folk music of the American 60s and 70s, Woodstock era is still very much alive and loved, but also all the other artists like us who are drawing from that inspiration and now taking that foundation and growing it and morphing it into our own storytelling styles.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, and adding layers of sound and
We've just lost they are back. It's a bad connection. I really admire people who do live music and rely on it because it's a tough gig. It really is a tough gig, and but once it's in your veins, it's very hard to let go, isn't it? You're in Tyalgum tomorrow night, and then on the 18th. Tell us about these gigs.
Yeah, so tomorrow night we are performing with a folk duo from Canada called In Echo, and that's one of the beautiful things of touring as bands overseas. You get to meet some incredible artists. So In Echo are a folk duo from Canada who are touring Australia, and we've invited them to come to our little town because they're in the region. And we live in a town called Tyalgum, and there's an amazing venue there called Flutterby's Cottage Cafe. And they have the best Friday night pizzas on the planet and best live music in the region. And so we will be performing there with them tomorrow night. And then on the 18th of April, we're doing our Leaping Off performance, our Leaping Off concert at a garden in Tyalgum before we head off back to America. So the 18th of April. So if you want to find out about those shows, look for the Heart Collectors, and it's on all of our platforms. We'll be promoting it today and tomorrow, and come and join in if you're in the region. We'd love to meet you.
Isn't it terrible? When whenever I worked in radio stations in the bush, you could always tell the newbie. You get the name of the town wrong, and I always thought, I've lived on the Goldie now for a long time, and I always thought it was Tyalgum, it's Tyalgum, and so I apologise.
You are forgiven. You are forgiven. Tyalgum is acceptable, but the locals end up saying Tyalgum eventually.
Yeah, thank you. I got to mumble more, maybe.
Yes. Tyalgum.
You guys are fantastic. I actually appreciate live music, and what you're doing is you're making your own future. You will do very well in the US, and you will do very well with yourselves. It's all up to yourselves, isn't it? Head down, backside up, and believe in what you're doing. One more thing. What's your main inspiration? And it's not meaning to be insulting because you are already there. But what was some of the things that inspired you to get to this stage?
So when we first started as a band, our musical inspiration was very much the 60s and 70s Americana folk music of the Woodstock era. So musically, I used all that music to inspire our own songwriting and to hone our skills for singing harmony together. We really still deeply love those songs, Peter, Paul and Mary, Crosby, Stills and Nash, all that stream of music. But now as you said, we are off into our own space, and we are drawing inspiration from the world at this time and what we feel the world needs, which is love and happiness and peace and coming together, community storytelling. So we're kind of taking our roots and we've morphed it into our own sound. And I also want to mention our incredible manager, Ms. Drew Porter, who's been with us on the road for the last couple of years. She is a big inspiration to us. So she's like the fifth member of the band, and she keeps us one-pointed and keeps us on purpose with that energy and intention for spreading goodness and hope and love and faith in the world.
I knew plenty of managers of bands. I think they've been released from the insane asylum because it's tough being headmistress. Do as you're told. Go out there and sing. What? Just as a footnote, Country Joe McDonald, great folk rock musician, he just passed away recently. So it's and he crossed all boundaries. He was recognised in commercial music and pop music and rock music. So there is a place and a good place for folk music. Thank you very much for being part of our show today. It's our second one, and we are building this. The Heart Collectors. Want to find out more? Just go to the website. One more time, what's your website?
We are called theheartcollectors.com.
And you should get your manager to get the blood bank involved.
No, Mike, stop it.
Thank you very much for your time, Ruben, Kimry, Mobius and Tristan. Thank you so much for your time. I won't see you tomorrow night, but you can count it. I will come down and have a look at you on the 18th of April. And we'll do another chat, I think, before that, because it's for a good cause. It's, I believe it's the Wave Goodbye sort of tour.
Exactly.
Yes. Thanks for having us, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, what a great show. This has been the Country Telegraph. Nice to have your company too, by the way. We're back tomorrow at midday, every day, Monday to Friday at midday, and then not too far away. It'll be also on weekends, probably starting at around 11 or 12 for 3 hours on location. What you can do, though, if you're watching this and you're thinking, who the hell are these guys? Go to our website, thecountrytelegraph.tv. And in the right-hand corner, there's a Twitter bird. I don't know why they got Twitter there. Anyway, it's X, also YouTube and Facebook. Would appreciate it very much if you would just subscribe or follow. Facebook need 100. This is, as I said, our second day. We need 100 at least on Facebook so we can stream live and bring the latest in news and views and issues and real stories around rural, regional and outback Australia. Until tomorrow, goodbye, have a great day and drive carefully.